Welcome to richplanet.net, a program which aims to uncover the truth behind the alien and UFO mystery. I'm Richard D. Hall, and in this week's program I investigate the possibility of political debate in the UK on the UFO issue. The British government is releasing its files on UFO sightings over a 3-year period. The first release came in May 2008, followed by another in October. The files contain a total of 10,000 UFO sightings reported to the MOD since 1950. Of these sightings, about 5% provide strong evidence of something which cannot be explained by any known phenomena. The release of these files has raised the profile of the UFO debate in the UK. But reading between the lines, I believe the MOD only released the information which falls into line with their own overall plan for disclosure. If you take the time to read the letters which have been sent to and from the MOD on the Rendlesham Forest case, it is abundantly clear that the MOD know more about UFOs than they let on. In the entire history of the British Parliament, there has only ever been one proper debate on the subject of UFOs. This took place in the House of Lords in 1979. It would not have took place at all if it were not for aristocrat Brinsley-le-Poer-Trench, Lord Clancy, a UFO researcher who had written 7 books on the subject. The debate packed the House, in which Lord Clancy called for an intragovernmental study of the UFO phenomena to bring the subject out into the open and encourage public participation. He also called for the Secretary of State for Defence to give a televised interview on the UFO subject. I obtained a transcript of the debate, and it makes very interesting reading. At the time of the debate, nothing was yet known about the Roswell incident and other important events such as the Disclosure Project, Bob Lazar's testimony, and significant sightings such as Rendlesham Forest and Stevensville, Texas, to name but a few, were all yet to occur. Of the 14 lords that spoke in the debate, 9 were adamantly in favour of the proposals. 1 was not in favour of the proposal, but still believed that UFOs could exist. Some of the 9 claimed that they believed there was a cover-up by the British government. Only 3 were against the proposals, and one of these was the government spokesman. Lord Clancy opened the debate by eloquently describing a range of unexplained UFO incidents which have occurred over the years. He concluded, "Is it not time that Her Majesty's government informed our people of what they know about UFOs? The UFOs have been coming in increasing numbers for 30 years since the war, and I think it is time that our people were told the truth." He went on to say, "Whatever the truth is, I am sure that an informed public is a prepared one." Lord Trefgarnes then spoke for the government. "My lords, I am bound to say that I face making this speech with some trepidation. I had wondered whether we could justify holding what is in effect a full debate on this matter, but having seen the audience we have tonight, and indeed having heard the speech of the noble Earl Lord Clancy, I can see that that sort of thought would not go down too well. I may well be shouted down before I finish anyway, but let us see if we can avoid that right at the start." He then went on to basically debunk the UFO subject, explaining that if we knew more, then we would have rational explanations for all UFO sightings. The Earl of Cork and Orry spoke in response to Trefgarnes' stance. If he had been speaking as a private backbencher, I would probably have not said anything. But he was speaking from the dispatch box, therefore he presumably represents the views of the party to which I belong. It is a view which I disown entirely, because if a party of any magnitude cannot produce better views than that on a serious subject, I confess I am ashamed of it. If this represents all that the Conservative Party can produce in the way of thinking on what is undoubtedly a serious subject, whatever your opinion may be about it, then this is deplorable. The Earl of Kimberley had some interesting points also. It has been reported that the United States and the USSR signed a pact in 1971 to swap UFO information, but the pact stated that they were to keep the rest of the world in the dark. 10 governments now openly admit that UFOs exist and are real. France, Norway, Sweden, Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Mexico, the Philippines, Peru and Grenada. Other governments know that UFOs exist but do not admit it publicly. 3 former United States presidents before their election proclaimed their belief in UFOs. They were Eisenhower, Lyndon Johnson and President Ford. During their presidencies, they became completely silent and did not fulfill their promises. Why? I strongly suspect that Her Majesty's government knows why, and if they do, why then they should inform your lordships. The debate was won hands down by the UFO camp, who described in some detail many of the inexplicable events that have occurred over the years. However, none of the proposals were acted upon. You would expect in a democracy, with so many UFO believers in the House of Lords, that the subject would have continued to be debated both in Parliament and in the House of Lords. It has never been discussed since, and we are to believe there is no cover-up. In July 2008, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, respected scientist and astronaut, spoke on a British radio station. In the interview, he made some very interesting claims. Here are a few of the extracts of what he said. I happen to be privileged to be in on the fact that we have been visited on this planet. The UFO phenomenon is real, although it's been covered up by governments for quite a long time. It's been well covered up by all our governments for the last 60 years or so. They are little people that look strange to us. I appeared on Talk Sport Radio and discussed these comments with the presenter Ian Collins. Ian could not have put it better.
That's not just, you know, your person playing Sudoku. That's
it's not Dodgepot McDougal.
Exactly.
It's a real astronaut.
It is, who's a doctor, who's the 6th man on the moon.
These comments by Ed Mitchell are just the tip of a huge iceberg of evidence which supports the alien and UFO case. What I find very frustrating is the wall of silence which exists in our government about this kind of thing. I would expect that when somebody like Ed Mitchell comes out with this sort of information, our Prime Minister will be on the news immediately to make a comment and tell us that he was looking into it. It was clear that on this occasion, as usual, the government had no intention of discussing this in Parliament. So I decided to write to 10 Downing Street and put Dr. Mitchell's statements to the Prime Minister. In my letter, I asked Gordon Brown, do you believe that the British people have the right to know if our world has been contacted by alien civilizations? Do you or any member of the British government have any knowledge or information about what Dr. Edgar Mitchell was talking about? Do Dr. Mitchell's comments concern you, and have you taken any steps to find out what he was saying? I received a letter back from 10 Downing Street, stating they had sent my letter to the Ministry of Defence and they would reply to me direct. The fact that they passed this issue to the Ministry of Defence seems strange to me, bearing in mind my questions were not asking about defence, but were about the broader significance of the existence of aliens. I received a reply from the MOD. The first thing they point out is that they are only interested if they perceive we are under threat. It would not be correct for them to waste defence resources if there was no threat. They then pointed out that they were releasing the UFO files over the next 3 years, and finished the letter with the following paragraph. From time to time, comments on the subject of UFOs are made in the media, but it is not our policy to investigate every instance of this. I can state that we are not actively investigating Dr. Mitchell's statements, and other than what has appeared in the media, have no knowledge regarding them. They have no knowledge regarding his statements. In my opinion, they are either lying or are extremely naive in assuming there is nothing to these comments. I do not believe there is no knowledge of this somewhere within the UK government. I do not like being lied to, and if somebody within government knows, then why should they have the right to the information and the people who elect them do not? This makes us all second-class citizens. I emailed 20 Labour MPs, most of them in my local area in the North East, to ask any of them if they would like to take part in a televised interview to discuss this important subject. All of them either declined or did not bother to reply, including my own MP, Dave Anderson, who was obliged to reply within 2 weeks, but unfortunately he did not. I wanted to ask Gordon Brown in person questions about Dr. Edgar Mitchell's comments. I looked into the possibility of this, and wherever I turned, there was a stumbling block. It is almost impossible to get access to the Prime Minister to ask questions. So I decided to turn my attention to David Cameron, who is, after all, probably the next Prime Minister. The Conservatives have taken great pride in the fact that their leader is going around the country asking questions from audiences he does not know. This is called Cameron Direct, and the events are being broadcast live on the internet. One of these events would be an ideal opportunity to ask my question. Perhaps I could ask him to make a promise or a commitment to find out the facts and inform the people if he became leader. I had a look on the Conservative Party website and joined the mailing list in order to get advanced warning of when and where the future events would be. When the next Cameron Direct event occurred, I received an email 45 minutes before it was due to start. This didn't give me much time to get to Glasgow, where it was being held. It seems that these events are far less accessible than they imply on the website. I telephoned the Conservative Party about a dozen times and eventually got to speak with someone. They said that the Cameron Direct events were only open to people in the locality. They also said they had no immediate plans for having any events in the North East where I live. Back to square one. Frustrated that no MP wanted to talk to me and unable to gain access to the party leaders, I decided to go and ask the public. I decided to try and find out people's attitudes towards government secrecy on the UFO issue. The first question I asked was, if you were told by the government that aliens and UFOs exist and have visited the Earth, and the government has known about this for the last 60 years but not told the public for reasons of national security, how would you feel? Would you forgive them? Would you rather know the truth and cope with this, or would you rather be kept in the dark?
I would feel that they're just at last telling the truth.
I wouldn't feel angry.
You wouldn't?
No, because I do believe that something has gone on for years.
Would you forgive them?
Yes.
I wouldn't. I could understand where they were coming from by hiding it because they needed to collect research if, like, they were going to attack us and stuff.
In my survey, 38% of people were prepared to forgive the government, and 48% were not.
No, I'd rather know about the subject, but I can understand their fears.
I'd rather know.
I'd want to know why they would hide such a big part of the universe from the people who helped them.
In my survey, 76% of people wanted to know all of the facts about UFOs, but 10% would prefer to be kept in the dark. I'm going to finish this episode with one of my favourite clips. This has nothing to do with the politics of the United Kingdom, but it has everything to do with the cover-up of the facts about aliens. Phil Schneider was a geologist and structural engineer and worked for the US government on Black Ops secret projects. He had his top secret clearance and was involved in building huge secret underground bases in various locations throughout the US and the world. Some of these bases are 2.5 miles deep and are in the order of 4 cubic miles in size. On this occasion, whilst drilling holes to start another underground base, they drilled into a base which already existed 2 miles below the earth. Schneider was lowered down in a basket to investigate.
Now, another thing I want to reach to you is that during the unbelievable part, I was involved in building another base inside of Dulce, New Mexico, which is Los Alamos Laboratory. It's a biological laboratory. On the southwest part of the Archuleta Mesa, we built an underground facility, a better part of 3 cubic miles hollowed out underground. Then to the southwest of that, we were in the process of the early stages of building. We drilled 4 large tunnel-like holes. Some of them ran 2.5 miles under the surface. Number of the original wells or drilling machines that were used were at the rate of 2 miles a day. It was fairly rapid. The equipment kept coming up broken. So we wanted to go down, we wanted to send somebody down there, a human observer, or human observers in this case, to find out what was going on. Well, to our total surprise, first of all, the government knew all about it. They didn't tell anybody. When I saw Green Beret and Black Beret people encamped inside of our geologist camp, I knew something was up. The gig was up. First of all, I knew all about the alien agenda. I'll explain that in a few minutes. The large alien grays had been encamped there for as best as believed possible about 400 or 500 years. Had been one of their internal bases. And we drilled holes right on top of it. All the stinking air, all the black sooty air came right out as soon as the first hole was sunk, and all this soot came up, and well, that's when all the hell broke loose, really. All started. Anyway, after we drilled all 4 holes, it took about 2 days to drill all 4 of them. And when you build an underground base, you drill 4 basic holes, and then you build called stopes or cross-member holes across, and then you use blasting equipment, special blasting equipment by the analyzation of the rock formation, and you literally blast out or tunnel out or deflagrate or melt rock out to build the large rooms that are required for this underground base. Well, in this process, I was lowered down the basket of one of these holes, and about from me to this elderly woman here in the front was sitting a 7-foot-tall alien gray. The stench was worse than the worst garbage can you can imagine. The person the entity was absolutely horrible. I didn't waste any time. I reached for my pistol. At that time, as an engineer, I didn't have time to carry all the folderol of one of these big submachine guns that all the sea spray and the yellow fruit and all the outer perimeter and inner perimeter security people carried. I carried a little Walther PPK pistol with a 9-shot clip. This was in late August of 1979. Now, you got a regular suit of clothes, you got a regular clothes on, plus you're in almost like a spacesuit environment, and you're reaching for a gun. It's not the easiest thing to do, and then to pop a clip in it and start shooting. And I killed 2 of them. Yes, they're mortal, and they do die. However, in the process, one of them did this. All I remember is that he just kind of waved his hand in front of his chest, and the next thing I know, this blue beam hit me and just literally opened me up like a fish, and burnt my fingers right off of me. And it was some form of electrical force, because the kind of like being hit by a lightning bolt burned all my toenails off of me. Completely crispy crittered my left foot, burnt the shoe right off of me. All I remember is the smoking remains, and I'm still conscious, but in and out of, I didn't remember much. And there was a Green Beret that was right behind me that risked his life. In fact, he died. But he risked his life. He shoved me back in the basket and hit the button and took me up. And I wouldn't be alive talking to you today if it wasn't for him. I'm forever indebted.